your body will always adapt to what you give it. And if you're always, pampering and cozy, then your body will be non-resilient and very weak and not able to tolerate any kind of a stress.
There seems to be this curve where there's a sweet spot, and the sweet spot seems to be...
Olli, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks, Siim. I don't even remember how many years. It's maybe 4 or 5 years since the last time.
Well, yeah, we've had like a lot of these live streams on your channel, on the Biohacker Center channel, or the Hololive channel. And
sure.
But glad to have you back on my show. And, you've also recently published a new book called The Resilient Being, about resilience. And, I'm also one of the co-authors on that contributor. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk with you about all things related to physical resilience and health, etc. And I recently actually had a tweet as well on X where I said that, health is not like just being free from sickness and free from disease. It's also the aspect of being resilient, because, you could live in a bubble, literally speaking, all your life. But if you get exposed to some sort of a minor pathogen, then are you really healthy? Whereas being healthy is actually also being able to be exposed to certain toxins and certain pathogens without getting sick. And if you do get sick, you're recovering from them a lot faster than the average person would. So I think, like resilience is a central component of being healthy, and it's also very involved in like all the longevity mechanisms and longevity pathways. Like they actually overlap a lot. Like a lot of the resilience genes and stress resistance genes, they overlap with a lot of the longevity pathways. So it's, kind of very relevant to all things related to health.
Yeah, you kind of put it very well together. So I think like what we experienced as a humanity, like the COVID era and post-COVID, that was a kind of like it was a turbulence for sure, and it tested our resilience as a humanity, as like a global conscious being, but also in a single like individual level. And many of us got very sick, and hopefully most people recovered. Of course, it always takes a toll on certain people, but I think this was a very good test to humanity as a like a total, and it also bursted. I think this book also got a little bit inspired about the factors that are affecting resilience. And there's a lot into it. So this book, Resilient Being, you are also co-authoring it, and this is a statement of all the aspects that how you can develop your own resilience, how you can actually live in the world. You don't have to be in a cave, you don't have to be in isolation on an island. Of course, that would test resilience on a different way, but I see also many people kind of retracting themselves of the society and just like maybe moving countryside and just living the natural life. Of course, that's also the possibility, but then it's kind of missing the point of interaction and contracting different kind of maybe threats. I don't know if threat is a strong word, but different kind of things that challenge our physiology, our mental capacity, our being in total. So if you think about the Buddha who went to the mountains in isolation trying to find enlightenment, and eventually came up back to the people and realized that you're not going to do it alone. So we also need each other in this life. So
yeah, and you can't avoid it completely. There's always going to be, the entire human history and life on this planet has been a different kind of catastrophe one after another, so you never will be able to avoid them altogether. You need to be prepared for them in advance, both physically, of having your physical health in check, and mentally as well, of being mentally prepared for all the like uncertainty and dangers that come around at some point.
Nothing is as certain as uncertain. So that's a good phrase. Like also these kind of things force to live in the moment, and that's like you don't know what's going to happen next. Of course, you can do some predictions and what's the likelihood of an asteroid hitting the planet or beginning of World War II, III, or whatnot. So, but if you go too much into like the possibilities or the threats, then you're actually losing a lot of energy. So it's wise to recognize, okay, hey, now it's like winter season. There's a lot of viruses like hovering around. What I need to do to manage and go through that? How can I prepare myself? How can I prepare my body, the mind, and what do I need? And in this sense, also for me, like the seasonality and like realizing all the cycles, macro and micro cycles that we go through the life. It's when you learn to like just go with the cyclic nature of the life, then you're more able also to fine tune yourself and tune in to the flow, the stream, the flow of life. So that's how I see it. And if there are like disruptions, like major disruptions, so I can give an example. So for example, the past year I haven't gotten sick, no flu, nothing, and multiple past years like before that, we always in the winter time went to the Canary Islands or something tropical and just disrupted the body homeostasis. So our bodies were already in winter mode, and it's a different state physiologically. We go more inwards, like the core temperature maybe gets a little bit lower, and our immune system is like it's in a different state. So when you disrupt the homeostasis, you go into full summer, like full sunshine, blasting your system. And many times I got sick after being 3-4 days, like just taking too much in the sunshine. So that's also a good example of a hormetic stressor that goes beyond like 20 minutes sun, very, very much okay. But if you be there 5 hours and just like blasting yourself, so it's a major disruption to the system. So my point is that embracing the cyclic nature, for example, in Finland and Estonia, we have clear winter, we have clear spring, then clear summer and fall. So that not escaping necessarily like the dark times, like there's no light, it's very cold, just going through that. And when you go through the winter, you actually realize, hey, this made me stronger. And when the spring comes, you're suddenly like, oh my god, how much life and how much energy you get. So you kind of teach your body to go through these phases. So if you always escape, I need the light, I need the sun, then you're kind of missing here something.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you need some periods of, let's say, non-optimal even sun exposure, or non-optimal, let's say, immune system function for your body to actually become stronger and more resilient.
Yeah, and finding like limits. I like to go like to the limits at times. Like, what is the limit? When does the body or the mind say, okay, now it's enough? Like, could be like a sauna session that lasts like, let's say 5 rounds of 20 minutes in the sauna, and in between 2 minutes of cold exposure. That is a lot. That is most likely way too much. But how do I respond to that? Most likely it will cause a major stress reactions to the body, and then recovery, and then like fine tuning what is the optimal dose for me. So for example, for me it's 2 rounds usually, or 3 rounds sauna, maybe 15 minutes, and then 2 times cold exposure in between, and that's a good dose. It doesn't go overboard, but then it's also it does train the body and the mind as well.
Yeah, and I mean this is the biological phenomenon of hormesis. so that a small
Exactly.
stressor or a toxin makes the body super compensate for it so that it would be able to tolerate it better in the future. So like exercise,
Mm.
if you exercise, you cause some damage to the muscles and your nervous system. And, it signals the body that, hey, in the future, for us to adapt to it, we need to ramp up all these adaptation pathways to, make us stronger, more resilient, increase our antioxidant defense, etc. And, the same applies to,
Mm.
getting a tan is that as well. Like your body makes the
Yeah.
tan, so upregulates the melanin production so that it would be more resilient against UV radiation from the sun, and you wouldn't get sunburned
Mm.
that easily. And it applies to all these different hormetic stressors like cold and heat and oxygen and exercise, food, etc.
Yeah. Plant plant chemicals and
Mm.
many kind of things that would be considered as toxins in higher doses, but in smaller doses they are actually causing this pleiotropic pro survival program.
Mm.
This is a fancy way of saying that it's like preconditioning our cells to endure more stress and
Yeah.
actually improve the cell survival.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
remember I
yeah.
remember writing about it in my book as well, that if these mice in these studies, mouse studies, they're like preconditioned with heat before getting injected with a particular toxin, then they survive the toxin
Mm.
a lot better compared to not having experienced this preconditioning hormesis. So yeah, like if you're exposing your body to, let's say, these beneficial stressors in small and moderate amounts, like the heat or exercise regularly, then yeah, your ability to tolerate an actual toxin or an actual stressor is much better. So you're
Mm.
experiencing less damage and you'll recover from it faster.
This is also very interesting. Like if we think about different kind of creatures and organisms, we actually wrote about those in our book. There are like thermophiles and tardigrades. Tardigrade is a it's a very interesting, very small creature, and it can stand like temperatures ranging
Mm.
from minus 272 to as high as plus 150. So that is a quite huge range. So whatever happens to the Earth, they would probably survive. And
Yeah.
they go through this process called cryptobiosis. So they kind of change. It's not like a chameleon that changes the color, but they change their appearance and cell structure, and also like
Mm.
other content, and they can also stop the biological processes to put into kind of this very strong hibernation. So I think humans also, of course, we are not enduring these kind of things, but we can definitely strengthen ourselves. And I don't think it's coincidence that we have both heat shock proteins and cold shock proteins. So those mean that we have been evolutionary enduring these kind of states and things.
Mm. Yeah. So we wouldn't have these pathways if we didn't have to use them.
Yeah, and like use it or lose it. So it's get down with it. It's you don't want to just like lie down on the couch and eat some ultra processed
Mm.
food or foods and just like pamper yourself all the time. Like
Yeah.
self pampering, I think it's overestimated. Of course, you need that too, like relaxation and just like warmth and coziness and things like that. But like having too much of it,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
not leading anywhere. So
Yeah, if it becomes your default state, then your body will, your body will always adapt to what you give it. And if you're always, pampering and cozy, then your body will
mm,
be kind of non-resilient and very weak and not able to tolerate any kind of a stress. Whereas if you voluntarily expose yourself to moderate amounts of stress, then your body is more stronger and more resilient.
mm.
So yeah, like nothing in the body is without a reason. Like your body doesn't want to waste energy, and it always adapts to the environment, whatever that environment may be.
And also like if we think like socially, how do you pronounce this? In a sociological, maybe a little bit of psychological way, exposing yourself into these situations let's say like public speaking in front of a class. I know many like they don't want to do that because they are fearing that they embarrass themselves, but going into these kind of situations will eventually lead into more resilience in these kind of states, and then you're just it's just the thing you do. And but maybe I ask you a question. So let's put like this kind of situation that you've gotten embarrassed in front of your school class for saying something stupid, and then you create this mental concept of shame, and then you don't want to do it ever again, and it's haunting you until the adult life. So
Mm.
what would be your best strategy to kind of like confront this and like kind of go through it and release it?
Mm. Well, I mean, I was more shy and like very afraid of like public speaking in school, but yeah, as I became an adult, I I don't know, like I guess I did do like some, I guess, exposure therapy, small things. I joined like the Toastmasters local club where I did public speaking there
Mm,
because I did it for the sake of, I know I need it for my job in the future, like being an author and content
mm,
creator and like entrepreneur. Then I need to do public speaking because it's a very valuable skill. And I guess but I was already kind of more comfortable doing that in university as well, where you give some lectures or those kind of things in front of class. So I don't know. I guess personally, I just grew up in that sense of not becoming more courageous or more bold and not being afraid of
mm.
people that much. But I guess exposure therapy of gradually
Like
exposing
small
yourself to
step.
those things, yeah,
Yeah,
is the key. I think that's how you,
yeah,
as in psychology or psychotherapy, like you actually overcome like phobias and those things as well, like mild exposure therapy,
exactly. Yeah.
slowly.
So let's take an example that if you have like conscious parents who are aware of these kind of things, and let's say daughter or kid is afraid of speaking in front of school, so you can practice like public speaking in front of them,
Mm,
like in a safe situation,
right.
and then gain confidence, and then eventually like maybe you speak to your friends and like try practice like
Mm,
things like that. So
yeah. Yeah.
I also did like this exposure. I wasn't that like afraid, but I remember in high school it was kind of like there were quite mean people, and then like
Right.
getting like, hey, you suck, like things like that. And but from a young age, I tended to expose myself into all kinds of things that were really like hard. And like just can give an example. Maybe this helps. If we have like some younger listeners. So, for example, I was about 20 in the beginning of medical school. I wanted the job to get some more money, and I did this kind of job that I needed to wake up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. And then I took a bus that took about 30 minutes. I went to this Finnish Red Cross blood service. I was just like getting these kind of like test tubes and things like that in. So I worked for 3 hours from about 6 to 9. Then I went to school, and I did this like multiple days per week. But that eventually led into a very nice summer job in the lab. And then, from there on,
Mm,
and so I kind of like sacrificed sleep a little bit, and I didn't think about it that much, but also like exposed myself into very uncomfortable situations and things like that. So I think these kind of things that when you do from a younger age on, this will help you to also grow as an adult and build this kind of resilience, and that go into these uncomfortable zones and places, and like
mm,
not being comfortable all the time. So that's also I think why people do cold. It's uncomfortable for sure, but you get the reward afterward. Also, like sauna, like if it's like let's say 90 degrees and you spend there 15 minutes, it's getting uncomfortable, but then you endure it and you get the reward. So I think here the getting the reward is essential. Like you get, whether it's internal or external or just like a physiological reward, usually these lead to these kind of rewards that make you want to do it again, even though it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. I guess we can then, like talk specifically more of these examples of this hormesis and ways to increase your resilience. And physical resilience is obviously more relevant to actual physical health. So yeah, we can start with you talked about saunas and cold, so let's maybe start with that. So like, what are the besides the increased resilience to heat and cold, like what are the actual physiological responses and benefits?
Yeah, but well, as per sauna, I know you have been also talking about this quite a bit, and like we're lucky to be in Finland, who has the best research on sauna therapy, and Laukkanen et al. I think they are the most productive ones. So it seems that sauna is an exercise mimetic, but it's also an individual way of activating different kind of pathways that you wouldn't activate the other ways, like not with just exercise. So for example, you're not activating like heat shock proteins or FOXO3 proteins. Of course, NRF2, it's a major pathway, but maybe the physiological benefits why a person would want to go to sauna is mainly like cardiovascular benefits, also reduced cardiovascular mortality. And the more you do it, the more benefits you seem to be doing it. But when I talk about this, let's say in my lectures or webinars or whatnot, there seems to be this curve where there's a sweet spot, and the sweet spot seems to be 4 times per week and around 25 minutes, like a total per session. Of course, you get more benefits when you go into the sauna. Let's say like every single day, it's probably beneficial. But I've noticed here, this could be just personal, but if I do it too much, my autonomic nervous system gets too stimulated. So that's leading into lower HRV. So I think you also need to take it as a practice, kind of like a physiological exercise type of practice. So you don't want to overdo that as well. Of course, like immune system responses, increasing white blood cells, eventually leading into better immune response. So you gave this example of this, was it the mouse or that was injected with this toxin, kind of like a virus or something like that, or endotoxin. And it had a better response when it was exposed to heat like previously. So this kind of hyperthermic conditioning, it's that's how you call it. What else? Well, let's say you have problems with insulin resistance, blood sugar regulation issues, anything like that. I think this is one of the best ways to fix insulin resistance, and just leading that the glucose and energy goes better into the muscle, better into liver to be stored, not stored as fat. So there's a lot into it, and I have this image that I show. It's from 2018 from Laukkanen, it's Kunutsor, and there's this nice circle. So what it does cardiovascular wise is that eventually it lowers blood pressure. Of course, the immediate rise in blood pressure, but this is kind of like an exercise to the system that regulates blood pressure. Also lowering arterial stiffness. So this means that your the circulation and the vessels become more elastic, and also reducing the intima media's thickness. And this is also a sign, so it might get very thick, and also that leads to elevated blood pressure when the circulation and the blood vessels are not elastic. Also lowering inflammation, lowering reactive oxidative species, And interestingly, I see an improvement in lipid profiles. So major improvements in lower triglycerides, lower ADL cholesterol, higher HDL, and also endothelial function. So the stiffness, of course, it's related to this endothelial function, which means that the inside wall of the blood vessel or the artery, it's like dilating more easily. So this leads into lower blood pressure, also lower heart rate, like resting heart rate, and better function. So you don't need to pump the blood to a pressure that's very high. So I think the cardiovascular benefits are the most important ones. Of course, there's a huge list in their latest review article. I think what's from last year or 2023. There were like 20 different kind of chronic diseases that sauna therapy might have a beneficial effect.
Yeah, the heart disease is the biggest, what I see as well in the studies. And yeah, it's like mimicking a small cardio workout. So you're sitting there and your heart rate increases, your body temperature increases slightly. So you're having like a mini cardio workout that has all these like other benefits on the heart and the blood vessels and the brain as well as, cerebrovascular organs. So yeah, it's kind of, like feels like almost half of the benefits or the half of the effects you see in the studies related to lower mortality of heart disease and lower Alzheimer's and those things come from just like this mini workout that you get from the sitting down, and the other half of it probably comes from the heat shock and the reduction in inflammation from that.
Yeah, heat shock proteins are also like super interesting thing. Why would you want to activate heat shock proteins? What do they do? So, and what does wrongly folded protein actually mean? I don't know if you have opened up this concept ever, but protein has a 3D structure so that it's functionable, and if it's strongly folded, it becomes dysfunctional. So heat shock proteins actually fix these kind of folded proteins to so they make the proteins work again. You make the protein great again. It's great. So make a protein great again. Go to the sauna. Okay. Yeah. So this is one thing. Also, like activating the autophagy pathways. So or putting like all these things together. I think like combining. I know also that you think and often recommend it. Combining exercise and sauna together. Like I remember doing this forever, like since I was a teenager, like doing a workout, then go to the sauna. So I thought this was what everybody does. And in Finland, that was like, it was the case. And also in gyms, there's always a sauna, and people always go into the sauna for about 15-20 minutes after, let's say, bodybuilding or like a strength training workout. I didn't know it back then. It just felt good, but it's a kind of like having major extra benefits for the session.
Yeah.
And if you would do it, and if you would, let's say you would want to activate these protein folding effects, autophagy, and things like that. So ideally you would want to fast until you do the workout and go to the sauna. And only then refeed. So this would probably create the best benefits in terms of like a renewal, growth hormone, autophagy, proteins. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that after the workout is the best time to do the sauna. So you're boosting the recovery, you're increasing blood flow to the muscles for supplying the nutrients and repair mechanisms there. And the growth hormone increase as well will help with recovery. I mean, fasted, you don't want to go to the sauna with a full stomach or like having digested a lot of food.
Yeah, that's problem.
I would maybe go on empty stomach at least, or something that's easy to digest. if you're doing it
Mhm.
like after workout, like you don't always need to work out fasted, but if you do, then kind of keep it not that heavy if you plan to go to the sauna after the workout. So
Mm.
yeah, I think yeah, there is even like yes, it helps with this immobilization, like recovery from injuries. In a lot of these mouse studies as well, they like crush them limbs
Yeah.
of the mice, and then
Oof.
heat therapy supports the recovery
Yeah.
faster. And I personally have also taken the sauna after workouts for many years, and I do think that it enhances this. If you like, compound it, so to say, like you do this sauna after workouts for 10 years, then you're going to build more muscle and better
Mm.
performance than if you don't do that. You only do the workouts with all things being equal. Like, of course, it's not
Yeah.
possible to do that experiment, but given like the mechanisms and the other experimental studies, then, personally, I think that would be the case.
And interestingly, it seems that just going to the sauna, like a real dry sauna, Finnish sauna, Estonian sauna, whatever you want to call it, that you actually throw water into the stove. So that is the sauna, like a real sauna. So it seems to create some kind of muscle building signal as well,
Mm,
just by going to the sauna. I don't think like you're gonna get jacked by
right.
just going to the sauna. You need, of course, to some kind of resistance to the muscles, but it seems to be also like somewhat increasing like myokines and these kind of
Mm.
things that help to build the muscle tissue.
Yeah, there is one study I've seen that, yeah, they did 12 weeks of like 100-degree sauna, which is quite hot. And
Mm.
the people who did the sauna had like slightly higher muscle and more bone growth from that.
Mm.
So probably has to do with some growth hormone expression. But yeah, it's very small effect size. It's not going to be super significant.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I'm like, I saw the study. So maybe if you go into very high temperatures, maybe that's
Mm, yeah.
the case. Like if you compare, like anyone who's gone to sauna knows how different it feels to be in 80 versus 100 degrees. 100, like you get this kind of like burning sensation, and you don't want to be there like 15 minutes, maybe
Mm,
5 minutes, especially if you throw the water in the stove, it's gonna get really hot.
yeah.
So that could be like the case, like extreme hot temperature.
Mm. What about the cold? So that's also the one question people always ask, like, should I do
Mm.
the cold exposure after the sauna, and what are the effects of cold?
Well, interestingly, I haven't seen any studies that would take a closer look on this traditional cold hot or cold heat. Like you go to the sauna, you go to the ice bath, and do
Mm.
multiple times. I haven't seen any studies that would combine
Yeah,
these
me
kind of
neither.
things. So we only have like heat sauna studies, then we have like cold exposure
Yeah.
studies. So I'm kind of like wondering what, like, how come nobody hasn't done it? It's not that hard to put this kind of like a. It's very easy, I think, to do this.
Mm.
Like, there's a thousands of Finnish people who do it all the time. So I don't think it would be that different, like difficult to get people into these kind of studies. So maybe it's just yeah. What do you think about this? Why aren't there any studies on this?
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like maybe in Finland, everyone already does the cold pretty much with the sauna. But yeah, it would be
Mm.
still easy to separate the two of people doing only the sauna and people doing the cold contrast therapy together. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, like there's no studies on that specifically. There's the studies on cold, which indicate that there's some like immune system benefits, anti-inflammatory benefits. Obviously athletes do a lot of cold exposure to recover faster and
Mhm.
those kind of things. So yeah, there is that evidence, and I would say that probably you're getting if you're doing the sauna, you're getting the benefits from the sauna, and then you jump into the cold, you tend to get the similar benefits as you would getting from the cold therapy studies. So yeah,
Mm.
I don't know if there are any additional benefits by combining them, but if you do both, then you're getting the benefits from what the
Yeah.
both studies indicate.
Yeah, and it's a very like if you just do sauna without the cooling, it is a quite different game. So this is like I think it's kind of like a turbo or mega dose of both
Mhm.
in the same session. So that it would be very interesting to see like studies on this. Of course, they are completely opposite in terms of course temperature and also kind of the effects.
Mm.
And what is interesting is the activation of these cold shock proteins or CSPs, and this is something also that's on a major. Well, basically, all of the organisms have this kind of uh, system. So the cold is. I think this is even more we are exposed to than like extreme heat.
Mm.
I think like if you think about the history of the sauna therapy and heat therapy, there are these sweat lodges, there are Aztecs and these like ancient cultures that have had kind of these heating rooms, but I don't think we have evolved that much. Like if you think about the cold, there have been periods of very cold times like Ice Age and all these kind of things. So I think this cold is even more evolutionary um, system that humans throughout time have been exposed to.
Yeah.
And the metabolic effects are, of course, like quite different. So everybody knows like the immediate effects on noradrenaline or norepinephrine and dopamine, and of course, like a rise in cortisol temporarily. But it seems to be also managing that. Let's say you have too high cortisol response all the time. So if you do cold therapy, that response it's gonna get a little bit lower, even though in the moment there is a surge of cortisol, but you're also like kind of training the stress response. And the more you do it, you can train your body to endure different kind of stressors. And of course, this is usually combined with conscious like breathing. And people who go the cold for the first time, they're like, and I want to get out. So it's a kind of this reflex. And then when you do it again, you kind of start learning at, okay, this is the way to do it. And then you do it again and you learn to control the breathing. And eventually you end up being there longer and longer times. So this is how the process usually goes. And then you endure a lot more. And I think this is the biggest reflection to any kind of stressful situations that you learn, this is a stressor. I get this feeling. Then you start to maybe like even unconsciously, if you're programmed that into your system, regulate with breathing. So I think cold and the breathing, they always go like hand in hand. And you can precondition yourself to the cold just doing a couple of like slow breaths. But what happens metabolically, it's a bit similar to heat in terms of like activating GLUT4 receptors. So you are improving the glucose regulation, insulin sensitivity. But what is major difference is that you are activating brown adipose tissue or BAT. And the more you do cold, the more this regular white adipose tissue goes into this brown. And what does this mean? Brown, why is it brown? It has a lot of mitochondria, which generates a lot of heat. So this is kind of a slow metabolic response for the cells to, hey, we need to warm you up. You're like crazy, you are dying, you're getting the cold too much. We need to upregulate the cellular systems that keep you warm. But you similar, like in the same time, you're ramping up your basic metabolic rate and you're actually burning more energy. And it seems that the brown fat is also using the energy from the white fat droplets. So in that sense, you can be, if you do it properly, you can actually like lose weight without changing anything else. And I've seen this like multiple times. For example, I got this Finnish Sisu handmade wooden ice bath like at the end of the year, and then it was super cold then, like -12 or something like that, and I began doing it every day, and I was there usually around 4 minutes or something like that on a daily basis, and I realized that I've been losing some fat,
Mm.
like especially visceral fat, and of course subcutaneous fat as well, without changing anything else. So there's a potential also for like activating the brown adipose tissue and creating this kind of like like artificial calorie deficient state,
Mm.
that without changing even like your dietary patterns or anything like that, you're gonna be like burning more of your
Yeah.
the visceral fat, subcutaneous fat, both for
Mm.
fuel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Those
yeah.
effects are like, I've noticed that as well, whenever I've taken the ice bath or cold exposure for like a longer period of time. But yeah, like they're more like a temporary adaptation to that cold. So if you like keep doing it for many
Mm,
months, then eventually your body will adapt, and you're gonna like
exactly.
burn less calories by
Yeah.
doing that. So you need to kind of change it up, to not do it all the time, and to have like some breaks if your goal is to
Yeah.
keep you know causing new kind of a shock to the system.
Mm. It's like just like Arnold voice in my head, like the muscle need to get shock. You need to create the shock. So I'm thinking of, oh, I'm doing bench press, but then I run into and do leg presses, and so it's a shock to the system.
Muscle confusion.
Yeah. Yeah, just a different topic, but yeah, like good example of not like if you do all the things the same all the time, of course your body will adapt. And it doesn't feel that cold. Oh, okay, I don't need to produce any more brown adipose tissue. I got it.
Mm.
So like changing the patterns, changing the practice, what you do, having a little break every now and then. Like if you do it too much, that's also like a eventually could be leading to extra stress, because this is also a stressor.
Mm.
It is the hormetic stressor that trains your system to endure like more stress. But you can, of course, do it like too much as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if you do too much, you might get sick at some point. So you need to
mm,
balance all these stressors with enough recovery. So, like, if you do too much stress, too much exercise, too much cold, whatever, too much calorie restriction, and you're not recovering enough with proper sleep and nutrition and just relaxation, then yeah, the kind of the balance goes off, and you get sick, and you get some sort of, you know, uh, downtime, a forced
mm,
downtime from the stressor. Whereas, yeah,
mm,
your body will always endure as much as it can. So, and how much your body can
mm,
endure depends on, yeah, like your nutrition status, your sleep, your overall stress, and kind of this, yeah, hormesis, like how is your immune system, and how is your physiology adapt to stress and that particular type of stress. So if
mm,
you're always very, your body's very adapted to heat or cold, then you might not get that stressed that easily. But
mm.
eventually you might, if you go beyond what your body's capable of.
And this is like it's a very good reminder, like that we are all like individuals. We endure different kind of things, and also the seasonality has a lot of effect on this. For example, personally, when I have about 8 years of data with the Oura Ring, this bastard here.
Mm.
So I see these macro cycles. So usually like the HRV goes to the lowest in the like middle of the winter, and then it reaches the highest in the summertime. And I think it's very natural. There's a lot more light. There's a lot more like sun, more warmth, and things like that. You are not like that stressed that easily. So or also like understanding how much should I put on my body like at this specific time, and realizing that, hey, okay, maybe this is too much. And what I personally do, that with ordering, there's this like daily stress curve, and it has it shows you how many minutes, like in like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours, how many minutes I have been stressed. So it's recognizing these kind of like temperature, pulse rate, HRV, and then it calculates, okay, this is like high stress, low stress, anything in between. And I noticed from there that if I'm already a bit more stressed out, going into the heat, it's actually creating a stress spike. That is not the problem by itself, because usually I saw that after that there's a recovery response that is pretty immediate. But if that recovery response is missing, then it's usually just an like accumulated stress, and then I just down regulate it. Okay, I'm not gonna do sauna today. I'm just gonna like let's do a cold shower, just take it easy. So you can adjust yourself when you like learn to interpret these kind of signals with data. I think the data helps a lot, and then you get to know your body, and you begin like noticing how you feel, and that then this is something like you can teach your system and become more intuitive. Also, like realizing, okay, today not that good. Many people follow like very rigid exercise programs, like today I need to do that, even though they feel like trashed, and like actually today would be a good day just for recovery, but it's in my schedule. I need to do this strength workout today, and that's eventually leading into not super compensation, but actually going lower and lower. And in this sense, it also would require more time to recover. So, what's your take on this kind of approach?
Yeah, I agree that constantly pushing the envelope and the redlining with the exercise eventually leads to, yeah, like your body doesn't have time to adapt. So like if your goal is to just exercise and burn calories, then yes, like just every day doing a ton of exercise, will achieve that. But if your goal is to like adapt and get stronger for something, let's say lift more weight or run faster or something, then your body has limited resources, and if the resources are always used for recovering from the exercise instead of adapting and getting stronger, then you will never adapt. So you don't want to, yeah, redline it. You want to underline it slightly, but be in the adaptation zone, so close enough to redlining it, but not really doing it, and then your body is able to then super compensate. So yeah, like whenever I'm trying to, let's say, grow stronger or build more muscle, then I'm not like, actually going to failure with the exercises. Because yeah, like usually the growth, you achieve that already with getting pretty close to it, but not to completely
Like
going to failure.
RP 9, 8, even 7.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
8 probably.
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, you would be like on a 8 or 9 kind of range.
Yeah, that's true. And like when you train your system and your body, you become also more like in good terms with your body, and you become, you start to knowing yourself better. But if you're not challenging your system and going to the limits and maybe sometimes over it, you're not actually knowing how you deal with these kind of things. And for many people, it's like what ultimately is like, let's say you push yourself in the gym, go to the failure. It's not that much of the muscle damage or delayed onset muscle soreness that's hindering you, but it's more of like this both central nervous system and autonomic nervous system fatigue that is actually taking a longer time. So maybe we can touch a little bit about the vagus nerve, the autonomic nervous system, and of course, like you're the interviewer, so of course you can go.
No, I think
Where do we want to go?
That's an important part of the nervous system. So, and that determines whether something is stressed or balanced. So we can go there.
Yeah, it's like the vagus nerve. It's super interesting because it's actually like starting from here, like the brainstem, and then it's coming from there, there's this ugula foramen, and it is the longest nerve. I call it like the conductor of the human body. Kind of like it's regulating so many things. And like, let's say you have a sensitive nervous system, then it means like your vagus nerve, it's more, I think it's reacting more easily to different kind of stressors, and it's getting more like out of tune, so to speak. Let's say it could be anything from emotional, psychological things that are internal, but and also like anything that's happening physiologically, biochemically in your system. And then of course you have like everything that's coming outside, like from the environment, anything coming from the food, anything like light sounds, or like your closest people, or threats. So it's reacting to all of these, and you can for sure train the vagus nerve with different kind of things. And of course, like cold is a very good way of training your vagus nerve, and it's creating this heightened activity after the session of the vagus nerve, and creating higher HRV readings and things like that. But there are like a lot easier ways also to like kind of stimulate it. And well, if you go back a little bit, what vagus nerve does, it's innervating the major internal organs, especially also the digestive system. So many people who have problems in their gut, they actually have a problem with the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve. So the easiest way to activate vagus nerve would be like curling, like what is the term in English? Like you have a little bit of water and
gargle.
Do something like this, and of course like humming or singing, anything that's creating this resonance, throat singing. That is my favorite. And I realized that if I'm like stressed out, I might actually start like doing like things like this, or also like laughing. One of the best ways. Then you're like, the diaphragm is like you're creating like these kind of responses, and it's a good way also to help de-stress other people and see like activating their vagus nerve. So it's quite like delicate system that is oftentimes it's overreacting to something that might be a threat. And how do you see like a hyperactive like autonomic nervous system that is searching threats all the time? How do we kind of calm it down and like train that, hey, everything is safe?
Well, I think usually it's something is irritating the nervous system, whether that be some inflammation somewhere, neuroinflammation, or something gut related, autoimmune related, if your immune system is like triggered constantly, then that's gonna also keep you on your toes. And I mean, a lot of things need to be figured out, like where does it originate from? Is it sleep? Is it some sort of allergic reaction? Is it something environmental? Is it just that you're just stressed out from exercise, or whatever thing is psychological stress as well? So trying to kind of put a stop to that, and because if you're in that state, then you're not going to be able to recover. You need to actually get out of that chronic nervous system activation, and to
I think that this is like the most important point you said there, like going out of the fight or flight, or the overactive sympathetic system. Then only then after that you can begin to recover. And I have an example like from my life. I used to be, let's say, I can easily go like overboard and like do too much and just activate my system to the maximal sympathetic tone. And but I can also calm it down more easily. But when I was a younger doctor, I did like this 5-year period of like going from place to place as a young doctor, mostly ERs and very, very high stress environments. And I think that period I was most of the time, if not all the time, in a sympathetic tone.
Mm.
And I also worked out a ton, like five times a week, 2 hours every session, CrossFit and things like that. And I remember like also sleeping too much. And every morning I woke up, I was very anxious and like a bit sweaty.
Mm.
So that is a sign of cortisol. I might wake up multiple times per night sweating. So like in a very high state. But even like with this super high level of sympathetic tone and stress, I didn't go to burnout. So I've been probably close to burnout multiple times, but I don't know what it feels like to be absolutely like worn down. So the body and the psychology, it endures quite a bit of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take? I know you haven't been there probably in your life ever, because you have been so wise to regulate it and know your system and know all these kind of things that I wish I did know like 20 years ago. And maybe like the point is that the system endures quite a bit before it breaks down. But it's wise to like have breaks from the overactive sympathetic system, do these kind of, let's say, micro breaks, and you can use gadgets like from anything from sensei to pulsetto to neurosonic vibration, or red light therapy also seems to be activating parasympathetic tone. And just, I think the point here is just to not wait until you're super exhausted, but incorporate on a daily basis moments that you do these kind of things that train the vagus nerve, train the parasympathetic system, so that you are more resilient to whatever comes.
Yeah, well, I think in your case, you probably were, very fit and healthy, that your body was used to that stress. So you never like actually completely burned out. And your body was, like adapting to the chronic cortisol and the stress, so that, you don't really recognize what it feels like to be normal until you actually get out of it. So yeah, your body is adapting to the stress as well. And over time it's going to wear you out. But if you notice that and get out of it at the right time, then it's like recover. You're able to recover from that. But I do believe a lot that, if you make your body more resilient, then your body will also just handle the stress a lot more. So like a Navy SEAL, let's say they get exposed to extreme stressors, and they're probably able to handle, unless they have, PTSD, right? Which is a different story. But if they don't have PTSD, then they're able to tolerate like everyday stressors a lot more easily. They kind of stay calm, mentally cool and calm in a lot of like distressing situations in everyday life, unless they have like PTSD, which is this kind of you're overstressed the system, and to the point where you're coping with the stress. So there's always like a fine line. Like if you completely break the system, then you're gonna go into the more like this traumatic state where you're more vulnerable and more volatile. But if you're like never really reach that overburdened state, then you're increasing the average resilience.
And in this, I think being like physically fit and also like exposing your system to extreme physical stressors, that was even though like thinking now backwards, like doing 14-hour shifts and then workouts, how much time is there to actually recover? Not that much, but not training the body, not being physically fit would have probably led to burnout a lot sooner. And so here comes like the learning to train your body, I would say on a daily basis, doing something. Doesn't need to be like a 2-hour workout, but doing something like cumulatively that is helping your body to endure a lot. And also like, well, I can give an example how, for example, my training has been changing throughout the years. So in my 20s, I hammered down whether it was bodybuilding, and then came CrossFit. Multiple years, that 2.5-hour sessions. I've done Olympic weightlifting, like gymnastics, that required a lot of skill development. Also, they were really hard, like training sessions. I wouldn't do that like anymore. I'm 45 now, so how I changed that, it's more intuitive type of training, but I train throughout the day. Of course, I might have like a separate workout sessions, but for example, here at the office, yesterday I did 100 squats with kettlebells, to 12 kilo kettlebells on a hyper vibe, divided into 3 sets. And then I ran down the stairs with the kettlebells and up, like to the 8th floor. But this was kind of like sliced into these micro workouts. So every 30 minutes, I will do something like this. It's not stressing my system that much, but it's creating this capacity also to endure different kind of stressors, but also like improve the body and like maintain or even gain strength. So thinking training and movement in different way, it is kind of like microdosing different kind of ailments, different kind of stressors. Yeah, so I think this is a better approach, especially when you get older. Of course, if you just want to be super fit and just train your body, then these like regular workout sessions are probably a better way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like sprinkling it around the day rather than having a very grueling workout in one sitting.
And getting a dog, like I know you have a dog. She's, or is it he or she?
He,
So he's how old? 1.5,
1.5,
2. Yeah. So we have about the same golden retriever. So it requires a lot of movement, a lot of like playtime, a lot of walks. So that has also brought into the element of de-stressing, like playing with it. It's a really nice way to de-stress your system, not just be in the moment, not thinking about anything, but also like having a dog that requires a lot of exercise, movement, and walks. It's also one of the best ways to build this kind of slow engine that also helps you to endure more of the stressors. So I see having a dog, especially, it's a de-stressing element.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's one of the best de-stressing activities to just play with the dog or go for a walk. What about like nutrition side? So that's obviously very more nuanced. So it's not that black and white that you should eat like crayons or nails to make your body stronger. But yeah, you mentioned like these plant chemicals before, and that's also very controversial online. So obviously there are benefits to those. It's very well researched that a lot of these different ingredients have beneficial effects on the body. I guess the answer is like how much and in which people. So there's individual differences.
Yeah, a lot of very fascinating plant compounds, and I'd like to highlight like the adaptogenic herbs, adaptogens. In the book, we have about 20 pages of adaptogens, like very thoroughly written, and they're like rhodiola, Shishandra, ashwagandha, tulsi, reishi, ginseng, like different forms of ginseng. We have cordyceps and maca. So I think these are the major adaptogenic herbs that really used in a like a specific way, let's say in a tincture or double extract with water or alcohol or both, or glycerol, they all have different kind of effects because they extract different compounds from them. I've been playing around with adaptogens for maybe 10 years, a little over, maybe 12 years. And I use them on a regular basis. So I can break down a little bit. It's like you definitely want to read this book. Just a small reminder of this. You can even read it on before you go to bed. This doesn't weigh as much as our Biohacker's Handbook. It's a bit hard to read before going to bed. But let's start with reishi, or Ganoderma lucidum in Latin. This is one of the oldest mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms. It's kind of like a spirit gateway, or the spirit herb. In terms, it's definitely not psychedelic at all, but it's as I experience it, it's creating the connection to the subconscious mind, and also maybe opening up senses. In a physiological level, it's definitely calming down your system. Might have a little bit of GABA effect, but also like overall like calming effect with these different beta glucans and many other things. And it's one of the oldest herbs in Chinese medicine, and used also could be called as a longevity herb, or immortality mushroom, or the elixir of life, Ling Chi, or 10,000-year-old mushroom. So it's very, very beautiful, also growing wild in Finnish forests. And I use wild Finnish reishi usually in the evenings. And what I've noticed is it calms down the system, not in a way that it's just like that you get from like GABA inducers, like let's say taurine, glycine, but it's more like subtle. And also sleep-wise, it definitely increases REM sleep. And the more you take reishi, the more, I would say, wild dreams you get. It's really opening up some set channels that are the way to your imagination, maybe some other realities as well. But this is, of course, more metaphysics. And what an adaptogen means, it helps your system to adapt to different kind of stressors. So I also see reishi kind of like this adaptive system. It also regulates somewhat immune system, that if it's like, let's say your immune system is not, it's not active enough, so it can upregulate it. But also if it's like overactive, it can downregulate it. But I would be careful if you have an autoimmune condition or anything like that. It could be a problem. But this is one of my favorites for sure, and I've been using it for a very long time. And
gives
of course,
crazy dreams as well.
Yeah, and I've been using it like multiple years every evening, and I dream a lot. Sometimes it's you wake up in the morning and like, what happened? Like crazy interstellar, like we could go there. Like I've had so weird dreams, like contraction with different kind of spaceships and like aliens and astral projection and things like that. So I think reishi has a lot to do with that, but also it kind of like shakes the subconscious mind, and in dreams you can like interpret what's going on subconsciously, like these themes. And of course it's not like concrete, but there are themes that might rise up from your subconscious that you maybe haven't dealt with. So in that way, I see reishi as a powerful tool to work with your subconscious mind, and also that helps to build resilience, like when you know what's going on beneath the conscious mind. So yeah, that is reishi. Maybe I just pick three of my favorites.
Yeah, to go through the entire list.
Yeah, so I think like the second one would be ashwagandha, and like this from Tibet. Like originally, it's has also like thousands of years of use. There are different kind of forms of ashwagandha. Like I would go with this like highly standardized extract like Centurial or KSM66. And even better, Shoden ashwagandha, it's a bit more recent one. So this is my favorite because it definitely has help. It increases testosterone levels in man, but also lowers cholesterol levels and has a more of a targeted effect. So I'm not that big of a fan of KSM66. It's more like all over the place. But yeah, so if you live a high stress life, KSM of course might help, but I think the Shoden it's more beneficial in this sense. Of course, like with these are kind of like natural drugs that could have potential interactions with any like medications. So if you're doing any GABA medications or SSRIs, then definitely it's I wouldn't mix these together. So traditionally, it's thought of this kind of like a Rasayana herb that strengthens and rejuvenates. And how I see it, I would take it in the evening just to de-stress and calm down the system, lower cortisol, elevate testosterone levels. So this is what would be the third one? Let's say well, this is of course my personal opinion. I use rhodiola or rose root. This is this is kind of like opposite to ashwagandha. This is more like uplifting. It creates a lot of energy. It has a lot of effects, like beneficial effects in the brain on different neurotransmitters and also different parts of the brain, from limbic system, prefrontal cortex, even to hypothalamus, also regulating the HPA axis, down-regulating corticotropin, also down-regulating too high cortisol and epinephrine levels. And this is something I don't use all the time. It's usually in these periods if I feel I need a little bit of uplift and I don't want to do too much coffee, because the difference between like adaptogens and stimulants is that stimulants, they are and then they rob your system that you need to recuperate. But adaptogens, they build your system like through the time, so they're not causing these kind of dips in energy levels or anything like that. They are not consuming resources from your system. They are helping to build the resources. So rhodiola are very good for cognitive work, but also for physical stamina, physical exercise. And so I would this would sum up like my top 3 adaptogen herbs.
Yeah, that's a good list. Like I use rhodiola occasionally and reishi as well for the sleep. Yeah, but what about like the nutrition side? That certain plant chemicals like lectins or gluten and those kind of things, are they like harmful for some people, or why do you think there's such a like conflicting response in how people will digest them and how people react to these ingredients?
Yeah, so now these are anti-nutrients, and there's a whole bunch of anti-nutrients. This is something we opened up in the Biohacker's Handbook, so you should get that one too if you don't have it already. Lectins, one of the group of anti-nutrients, also like this gliadin or prolamins in general, that are found in all of the grains. Actually, it just happens to be that the gliadin or the prolamine protein from wheat, it's the most like prominent one, and it's probably potentially could be causing some issues. But these are also like it's kind of like a hormetic dose. Okay, this is a disclaimer. If you have an autoimmune condition, you are already wrecked, or like your gut is let's say you have a leaky gut, it's highly inflamed, then even small amounts of anti-nutrients could be causing major issues and problems. But let's say your system is pretty healthy, and you can think these also kind of like as a hormetic stressors to your system. Every now and then, having some anti-nutrient high foods, like could be like a sourdough bread every now and then, or eating some beans that are known to have quite a bit of lectins, but not too much. It's yeah. So I think this is if you avoid all of these potentially harmful substances through time, it might be causing that in the future you're not tolerating them at all.
Yeah.
So this is also the case for many plant chemicals that actually have beneficial effects, high polyphenolic content, plant chemicals. You don't want to overconsume those,
right
either. So
yeah, I mean it applies to the soil in general. So like soil bacteria and touching the grass and touching the dirt.
Yeah.
And playing in the dirt as a child is what actually builds your immune system and builds your microbiome. So like I'm able to like pretty much tolerate all plant toxins in like very large quantities. Like I can eat like I can eat like probably like a pound of beans every day. I can eat like
what?
like an entire loaf of bread, regular wheat bread every day, and I would have no like issues with that, like no digestive issues, no skin issues, no rashes, no gut issues, anything like that. And I do think a part of it is because my parents, or like we grew up in the countryside, we were playing in the dirt all the time, and our immune system is strong from that, and our microbiome is strong from that. We drank, raw milk, and we, got exposed to a lot of like pollen from nature, and we were next to a wheat field where they grew the wheat, and so like my immune system and microbiome is just so developed and so diverse in that sense that I don't have any allergic issues or immune system issues from that. Whereas nowadays people live in the cities, you're very sterilized, you're not exposed to the natural soil and natural microbiome, so you're actually deficient in that microbiome component.
Yeah, this is a huge point, and you have been living the optimal childhood in terms of like the environment and like the natural way of living and exposing yourself to beneficial microbiota and like microorganisms from the surroundings. And this is definitely that's carrying to the adulthood. Unfortunately, I didn't have this that much like of a beneficial experience. Of course, we like every summer we were in our summer cottage and played around in the woods and with soil and things like that. But I didn't live in the countryside, and I drank like liters of milk, like this non-fat, like highly processed milk, and like very bad quality bread and things like that throughout my childhood, which eventually led into gut issues, inflamed gut, and a lot of acne when I was younger.
Yeah.
And all these things went away when I think I was about 25. I changed the diet that I removed all dairy and all grains, and every skin condition, gut issue kind of went away. So, but when you grew in this kind of natural environment with natural food, natural habitat, you develop so strong system that even these potentially harmful chemicals and toxins are not creating that much of a response. So I don't know if I want to eat any beans because I don't really like them, but if I would get a lot of symptoms. Also, like unfortunately, many of the fermentable like foods are not very good. But this is just like fine tuning your body, what suits your system, and how you can like practice your system, or like with small doses implementing. Let's say you are very reactant to like garlic or onions or things like that. Having just small amounts of these every now and then would probably train your system to send the signal from the brain that, hey, this is not dangerous, this is okay. So this is kind of like what are done with the different kind of allergies, just to make the system and especially, well, it's the immune system that reacts, makes it send a signal that is safe signal. Hey, this is actually okay, and then you start to tolerate these things better. So I think this is a lot wiser way than to totally remove everything for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah, and huge genetic component. Some people react to certain foods, others don't. The same way with like certain other chronic diseases. Some people get the disease, others don't. So like cancer or diabetes or something, genetics is a very big part in that
Huge.
as well.
Yeah.
And and like you can improve it, with certain perhaps probiotic supplements can fix or improve some symptoms in some people. And fixing some of the underlying issues, like why is your immune system overreacting? Like I said earlier, is it some sort of underlying inflammation or something in environment, like mold? Mold toxicity can like overactivate your immune system and cause like a pseudo autoimmune response to certain foods, because your body's actually reacting to the mold, which this collateral inflammation makes you react to other foods. Like my wife, Inka, she had like mold illness previously, and she's taking like certain medication for that, like a mold medication, and that has actually helped her to tolerate a lot more foods now that she's been using that medication, because it treats the mold illness, so she can
was the
tolerate a lot of the
cholesterol?
cholesterol actually.
Cholesterol,
That's the one. And it's actually helping her to tolerate foods she couldn't before, because of helping with the mold inflammation and that kind of thing. So usually it's not like up to the certain food, like undercooked foods, like raw. A lot of raw foods can have these more anti-nutrients, etc. A lot of cooking destroys them or reduces them. But like sometimes it's just underlying gut dysbiosis, underlying inflammation, underlying autoimmune reaction to that makes it body react in a specific way.
That is it is a huge topic, and also the gut health is, I would say, also at the core of many resilience features, because we are holobiont. We are a holobiont that consists of a lot of different microorganisms, and then it's not just our genes; it's also the microbiome and just the whole genome and everything that's around us that has an effect. So, like in your example, you probably have a very high microbial diversity, which is a huge thing in the gut, and Inka probably has like a lesser one, and also problems with the intestinal wall, so-called leaky gut, which often creates a leaky brain because they're so similar, and the blood-brain barrier structure is similar to the gut lining structure. So everything that fixes the underlying inflammation and the condition, it's really helpful. But this is I would say this is just another topic that could be caused or talked like hours. And actually yesterday I just gave a talk or a workshop on this, like 2-hour workshop on how to fix issues in the gut and the liver with natural methods. So as we can deduce from all this, our systems, it's quite complicated and like very sophisticated, and many things have an effect, and those internal bastards could be creating a lot of issues, and like let's say lipopolysaccharides, these kind of bacterial endotoxins that are causing the problem from the inside out. So treating these kind of issues is also a way to self-healing and eventually creating better resilience. So it's a journey. Like when you start learning about these things and you take the first step, you begin. I don't like anymore the word optimization that much, but you begin to take responsibility of your own health. and your own well-being or your own life. Also, then it's a journey when you learn these kind of things and what are the things that are working for you, with also trial and error, but also measuring things. Like, how would you know if you don't measure anything?
Yeah.
So becoming aware, like you cannot guess what's in your gut. Like what is the microbiota like consisting like? It's impossible. So becoming aware with the data, it's really helpful. And then after that, you can ditch the data for a while and just like go on what you do. Let's say you contract some kind of problem, whether it's a toxin, microbial issue or anything like that, then you can go ahead and measure again and do things that are required. So this is the personalized way also for medicine treat people.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you're right. We can start wrapping up. Like the gut is kind of worms.
Yeah.
Where can people get the book and learn about you?
Yeah, go to biohackercenter.com. There's everything from our books to Siim's books to our courses, ebooks, a lot of cutting edge supplements. We have a lot of webinars, and I've written a ton of free articles. I think like over 100 free articles that are basically mini books on different kind of topics. The latest ones are like liver detoxification, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and optimizing thyroid hormones and things like that. Biohackercenter.com. You can also order the book there. And of course, this is an invitation into our event that's now turning 11 years old. Previously called Biohacker Summit. Now we have kind of changed the direction. It's HoloLife Summit. Holos meaning whole, HoloLife meaning like holistic life, and not just biohacking, but also transcending biohacking and incorporating like self-transcendence, self-actualization, realizing what is your purpose, what is your mission here, and what do you want to do to help others and create something unique into this world. So HoloLife Summit takes place actually in Estonia this June. Siim's gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. Let's see if you're gonna be there. So hololifesummit.com, and our hub and store is biohackersummit.com.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll put the links in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for coming. The last question is, what's this one piece of advice or habit that you wish you adopted sooner?
Not taking everything so seriously. So like, and yeah, just having more fun. I've always had fun, and like laughter has been my secret power and humor. But sometimes you lose it when you like lose yourself in the work. But like, yeah, enjoying life more, having more fun, and just not taking everything so seriously.
Yeah, that's good advice. Good for stress as well.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming to the show, and yeah, it was great to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks, Siim, and catch you later. Ciao.
All right, that's it for this episode. Make sure you check out my new book, The Longevity Leap, on Amazon. I'd also appreciate if you share this episode with a friend or family member. Other than that, my name is Siim. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay empowered.